Let's go back to the original body temperature regulating scheme. Then we say a room temperature decrease, and then we'll decrease the body temperature. Then we bring about body responses. So this parenthesis body responses, how the body responses are induced. Now we can get a better look through this reflex arc. We start with decreased body temperature. Then this decreased body temperature will be sensed by temperature sensitive neurons surrounding our body, all over our body. Using a more physiological term, their firing rate increase. So this increase goes through the afferent pathway, usually are by nerves, sensory nerves, get into the integrating center. This integrating center, there are also specific neurons in the brain. They will compare to the set point, so they will alter rate of some firing. So this efferent pathway, they will go to smooth muscle in skin, the blood vessels, they will cause it constriction. Constriction of the skin blood vessels will decrease the blood flow and then decrease the heat loss from our skin. Then also this efferent pathway will go to our skeletal muscles and cause contraction, that's shivering. Shivering of the skeletal muscle will produce more heat, increase heat production. Both increase in heat production and decrease in heat loss will bring back our decreased body temperature toward normal. So this reflects minimizing the decrease in body temperature, okay, that occurs on exposure to a reduced external environmental temperature. This is how it happens. To end the discussion of homeostatic control system, we have some important generalizations. First, the steady state, we call about the steady state, the stability. This is achieved by balancing inputs and outputs. Okay, so you have more inputs, then you probably need more outputs. You have less inputs, then you need less output to maintain a stable. And this control system usually uses negative feedback, and negative feedback tends to move the variable in the opposite direction of change. And third thing is, even the homeostatic control system is very efficient, but it cannot maintain a complete constancy. We call the dynamic constancy. That means up and down a little bit. And even more, the set points sometimes can be reset. A lot of cases when we got infected by bacteria, by virus, or by other things, about that, even they have many toxins can induce that. So the set points in our brain, but the body temperature set point in our brain can be reset, just like a blood pressure set point or even blood glucose set point. So they can raise it. So our body temperature will go high and stay there. That we call the fever. Okay, and as for blood pressure, then we have a prolonged high blood pressure, then we have hypertension. And we have prolonged high blood glucose level, then people will have diabetes. So this is the abnormal state that set points are reset. Of course, when we get old, sometimes some set points can also be reset, like blood pressure tend to be higher and higher when we're getting older and older. And sometimes we have some priorities, okay? Some variables may be altered. We just say sacrifice one variable a little bit to maintain the stability of others, because during that time, the stability of the other will be more important. And this we will have more cases. And then when we talk about this integrating homeostatic control systems, we just say receptor, afferent, integrating center, efferent, effector. Then we don't talk about who mediated this pathway. Okay, this pathway, of course, is a nerve, some neurons, and sometimes it's hormone responses. There are many players we call the intercellular chemical messengers that mediated the information transfer. that are chemicals that secreted by cells to communicate with other cells or even with itself. We have four major classes. Okay, one is called neurotransmitters, one is called hormones, and the other two called paracrine and autocrine substances. So neurotransmitters are secreted by neurons, and when we talk about nervous system, neurons are the major cell types in our nervous system. So the neurons will secrete these neurotransmitters and will affect other neurons or effector cells. And these effector cells, mostly muscles and gland cells. Okay. And usually these neurons, the other neuron and effector cells, they are close proximity to site of neurotransmitter release. That means the terminal of the neuron usually have direct contact with the other neuron or their effector. And then we have these hormones that the hormone secreting cells are what we call the gland cells. The hormones, actually, they are transmitted by blood within the blood vessels. So their target cells can be in one or more distant places in the body because the blood circulation can go anywhere. And then we have these two local factors we call the paracrine factors. Para means adjacent. So this local cell secrete paracrine substances. Their target cell is just close by, in close proximity to site of release of paracrine substance. They are not secreted by neurons, or they are not neurotransmitters, but they are just paracrine substances. And also these substances secreted by these cells can even feedback their own cells, their own secreting cells that we call autonegative feedback. Okay, there are many processes related to homeostasis. One we call adaptation. Adaptation usually by evolution, so the human long-term adapt to some environmental changes. We don't drink milk after we pass, we call the weaning process. But then we have this so-called dairy science. We have these domestic animals, so we have plenty of milk from cattle, from cows, and even from sheep. Okay. So we have more milk. Usually we don't have this lactase to break down lactose, but a lot of people they have this lactase all through their life, so they can drink milk without problems. But lactose intolerance is normal, and lactose tolerance is the adapted function. And just like skin pigmentations, people living in the higher altitude receive less sunlight, so they need to absorb more UV light from the sun to make more vitamin D, so their skin become paler. So skin pigmentation is also an adaptation. Okay. And the second time is so-called acclimatization. So the word here is climate. That means if we move to a different climate or different region of our places from north to south, okay, so it will be hotter or will be more humid, then our body get used to the new environment. So that's called acclimatization. Acclimatize. So that's the ability to respond to environmental stress that is enhanced by prolonged exposure. But this acclimatization may not last forever. When you move to the south, you will acclimatize to heat and to high humidity better. And then when you move back to northern region and stay there, and then this ability will be lost. And one of the acclimatization called the developmental acclimatization, that means it is induced before a critical period, usually early in life. Okay, so that means you can develop kind of structural changes or some responses. So this may not be reversible, okay? Just like people living in the Andes in Southern America, high altitude. So they tend to have a larger chest. Okay, that means they need more lung volume because at high altitude you have less partial pressure of oxygen, less oxygen. So you need to have a larger lung volume that you can survive. So this change after a certain period of time cannot be changed back. So people, you see, even they, after adult, they move to like not from high mountain to plain region to live, they will still retain that barrel shape. That means enlarged chest wall. So that is a developmental. So then we end the talk of our first lecture, okay, the framework of physiology. We have 3 take-home messages. First, physiology is the study of body functions, essential for the survival of the organism. The second, the ultimate goal is to maintain a constant internal environment, and we call this homeostasis. And the third, to maintain this homeostasis, we have this homeostatic control system, and within this system, negative feedback usually plays a major role. Okay, thank you.